computer. Okay. Hi, Patronians and YouTube. This is the Mars and Gemini transit from August 20th, 2022 through March 25th, 2023. Today, I'm going to be talking to you guys about what we can expect to happen with this, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let me go August 20th. Oops. All right, so let's start off by talking about Mars, okay? This is the most important thing here, as is part of this flow. The planet Mars, oh my God. Come on, y'all. What? Oh my God. Sorry guys, I'm having technical difficulties. Give me 1 second. Okay, there we go. Got it on YouTube. Okay, so we're wanting to talk about Mars. So first of all, we always need to examine whenever, especially, I mean, anytime, planets are the key here, right, in astrology. We've got to talk about what Mars does and represents as a planetary influence amongst the planets that we are operating with when we're, working through it. So Mars is the planet of action. It is the planet of war. It is the planet of separation. It is the planet of sharp objects. It is the planet of enemies. It is the planet of fighting. It is the planet of all things that are directed and directed force. That is what we anticipate whenever we are brought face to face with the planet Mars. It's about how we choose to get things done. What is our most natural stage of order that we go about taking into account the goals that we're seeking to reach? Because that's what Mars wants to do. It wants to complete, wants to see a goal through. We think about Mars in the planet of Aries, where it holds rulership, and even Scorpio. We'll even talk about the exaltation of Mars being played when it's placed in Capricorn. All of these things are really, you start to notice some of the similarities that the planetary ruler of Mars has when it's functioning well within these signs. When Mars is in Aries, we want to take action, we're decisive, we are not afraid, right? We're willing to take risks. We are assertive with this nature. And so we go and get things done. The reason that Mars is exalted in Capricorn is because when Capricorn comes and touches, and Mars and Capricorn come together, we're able to create a plan, a well-functioning, well-structured plan at that. Mars and Aries can sometimes be so big on the fire, it might sometimes lack the necessary structure to make that action fully be vetted out and come true. So when we have Mars moving, it is going to create disruptions. That's the nature of Mars. It is going to make things happen really fast. It's going to be sudden, sometimes shocking. It's definitely meant to strike. It's meant to make a move of some kind. So whenever we're talking about Mars, we can assume that the kind of movements and strikes we're going to see have a lot to do with the planetary ruler of wherever Mars, whatever sign Mars is transiting. In this case, the planetary ruler of Gemini is Mercury. So we're looking at this from a mercurial perspective, as Mars will be transiting this place in our charts for the next several months, right? What is Mercury known to do? Retrograde more often than all the other planets. Not gonna lie to you, I've been hearing some other astrologers say this, the beginning of Mars retrograde, the beginning of Mars is really cool. Not quite. Remember, the beginning of Mars is going to square up with a newly entered sun in Virgo. It's also going to have to go against Venus in Virgo once we get there. It's not necessarily going to be the easiest transition for us to get through this, especially like the beginning. I actually read a tweet today and I don't remember who tweeted it, but they were like, oh man, things won't feel good until January with Mars and Gemini. And I was like, that's so true. Because I was looking over like December, we've got another Mercury retrograde in Capricorn, which, you know, is going to shift the dynamic there. So thinking about what Mercury is doing and how Mercury will be functioning as part of this Mars and Gemini transit is going to be important. Remember, Mercury will go through Sagittarius, which means that Mercury will not be or will be functioning from a space of detriment, so to speak, throughout part of Mars retrograde. So this is really important to be thinking about the way this goes. Now, Mercury, we know, what do we know about Mercury? We know that Mercury is quick moving. We know that Mercury is a traveler, right? Mercury is the only planet that can, you know, traverse the heavens and the underworld. It is the planet where we are able to understand information, where we're able to act on the information we get. Sometimes, like, to me, communication is it's a broad term. And although Mercury absolutely rules communication, we have to think about the ways that we choose to communicate when we're thinking about Mercury. Of course, the sign that Mercury is based in will have a lot to do with how we choose to communicate, definitely with our fluidity within our bodies, you know. I think about Mercury and Gemini, and I'm a natal Mercury and Gemini. I talk with my hands. I talk with a lot of enthusiasm. Even as I'm talking to you guys right now, you know, you on video can't see it, and of course you recording, but I'm like moving my hands. I talk with my hands. I think with my hands. I think of that Santa gif where he's like, you know, doing his nails, like I'm thinking. That's totally Gemini energy. So when we're looking at Mars and Gemini, we're thinking about technically a blending of Mars and Mercury. How do Mars and Mercury come together? And the thing with that is there's a lot of potential here for this energetically that I like, but there's some stuff. So some of the things I wrote down, some important kind of key words for this Mars and Gemini is information, media, celebrity, contagion, surgery, separation from disillusionment, new information brings and might offer a choice to surrender. Who are your twins that are positive? Who are your evil twins? Faux religion, slander, gossip, distractions, overstimulation, double talk, purposeful spread of misinformation, religious doctrine, getting lost in people, poor boundaries, community work, local support systems, mental health, breaks. So there's a lot. Number one, of course, with Mercury being here, the number one theme is information, right? Mars and Gemini is going to present a ton of information. Now, I want to take you guys back to like March and April 2022. This was an important time for me to begin watching, because this is when all of we had that Pisces pileup, right? Neptune, Jupiter, Mercury, Venus, like everything was in Pisces. And it was an important time for media. There was a lot of questions. I think that's when things started to get really real, like regarding Ukraine and stuff like that. So really making us think about the information that we're coming into contact with over the course of that time. Do understand that those themes are going to resurface as a result of that Mars in Gemini transit. This has huge impact on information and media because, as we know, Neptune and Pisces can be willfully deceptive. I expect a lot of the information and confusion that began during the time of, March and April is likely going to come. We're likely going to start getting the details that were previously missing surrounding that information. Now, for some of you, this is going to be like very clear and direct, you know, depending on where it lands in your chart. But for others of you, it might still be a little bit of a long story of unfolding that's taking place here. So do know when Mercury or when Mars goes into Gemini, it does create changes that are information based. Now, I also was looking up, you know, Mars and Gemini celebrities. I wanted to see, I'm like, how can I bring this and make this real? Because I always talk about Wendy Williams and Charlemagne the God as like our quintessential Mars and Gemini celebs, like knowing how to stir the pot, be messy, you know, there's a comedic aspect to them. Well, Steve Martin has this as well. Like, so it's definitely gonna be a funny fucking transit, guys. Gemini is funny. Everybody knows this. So when we see Mars going into Gemini, we can absolutely expect that the jokes are going to fly. There's going to be a lot of great creative energy. We're going to see a lot of great writing. Whether or not we see it, obviously, like with Mars and Gemini, I don't, you know, how long it takes to write, produce, direct, film a show. I think there's a lot of really great things that we're going to get from this transit because it does want to create. It does want to understand its local environment. This is a wonderful time for getting to know your neighbors, the people closest to you. Gemini is a very localized energy, right? It's not like Sagittarius where it's so worldwide. But it is asking you to like hunker down and get into the smaller groups that you're a part of. Or that resonate with you in order to create some difference or changes with you. It's really important that this Mars and Gemini transit, you do watch your mental health. You know, we have a lot of aspects here that do scream overstimulation. And Mars and Gemini does have a stimulation problem, right? It's like, wow, all of these things, all of these synapses I want to touch that. I want to learn that. I want to view that. I want to touch, like, I want to, all of these things. And it can be overwhelming because, again, it is going to have to deal with a lot of mutability to get its way through. We're going to have at least 3 mutable transits over the course of this Mars and Gemini transit, which means there are going to be 3 separate times when the Sun, Virgo, the Sun, Mercury, which is already in Virgo currently, but it will retrograde back, Venus, all go into Virgo. That's going to affect it. When that all happens in the sign of Sagittarius, that's going to create another effect once we head into November. Once it all goes back into Pisces as we head into March, we're going to get that trigger once again. So it is important that you think about, if you are a mutable placement, a lot of this is going to be important. Now, especially true for those of you who remember what the 2020 to 2022 transits were. This is your testing point. When we had our North Node in Gemini and South Node in Sagittarius, that was us really figuring out, you know, what are we moving towards? We want to localize. What kind of information are we seeking to get? It doesn't mean, I think people think that the North Node means that, like, once we get through the North Node, it's like a perfect thing, or, you know, we finally have learned the lesson. And it's like, no, we've had a theme resurface that maybe, hopefully we've learned the lesson, but that's not necessarily true. And astrology will come back to test you. It's going to come back and test that gangsta on that lesson that you were supposed to learn. In this case, we're talking about Mars and Gemini. So going back to not only the transits of North Node in Gemini, South Node in Sagittarius, but like Venus retrograde in Gemini, which happened in 2020. For those of you who are very Gemini or very mutable, you remember some of the themes that started to surface during that time. Who did you meet? Who did you connect with? What were you talking about? What were you doing? Gemini is very technology based. When Venus went into Gemini in 2020, what were some themes that were going on for you? And that's why I always say it's important, like, the best thing I could have done, and I always tell, whenever you're studying anything, even if you don't want to be an astrologer, just study time, write things down. Like all of these things are going to come back around at the end of the day, and you'll be happy that you have a form of reference for how this impacted your life as an individual. Hey, I remember, I always say it, I'm a Sag rising. So this Mars and Gemini transit is going to be very interesting for me. I already know like what my North Node, South Node story was. I remember very well what Venus retrograde in Gemini was back in 2020. So I already kind of know, based off of what I've already dealt with, what I'm going to probably be interfacing with, because yes, I'm an astrologer, but also like I take notes on my life, right? I have transits from that time that I can look and see, oh, this is what was happening. Okay. So that's why I'm encouraging you to take a look at that. Now, this retrograde does have its own story. This Mars in Gemini has a long story. And this story kind of begins on October 29th, or I'm sorry, October 30th, when Mars officially goes retrograde in Gemini. So this is an important point to watch, because whenever we have Mars getting ready to go retrograde, Mars wants to move fast. Remember, Mars spends 6 weeks in a sign. It is going to be there for 7 months. So this is a very confusing and different way that Mars is going to be approached in this sign of Gemini. Gemini rules cars. I'm expecting that there will be more accidents. Please don't be a distracted driver. Put your fucking phone down. Do not text. Get your playlist started before you back out of your parking lot. Get all of your stuff together. Wear your seatbelt. Because the heightened accident with Gemini, Mars and Gemini energy is huge. Now, I say this because Gemini can be a little like Gemini, like, again, I'm distractible. I am like squirrel, right? Looking the other way. It is easy to be distracted or to be even kind of lost in your thoughts or lost in the stimulation that your thoughts are bringing towards you, to such an extent that you end up creating and causing accidents. This is not only physical or car-based accidents. This is like miscommunication accidents, right? Hey, I thought you meant this, but you really meant that. Some of it is willful miscommunication, unfortunately. Mars and Gemini will double talk you, especially when it goes into those squares with Neptune and Pisces. How can I convince you? How can I make something seem one way, or persuade, or even, unfortunately, coerce? Because the nature of Gemini, they're great with words. They know how to get things out. It's really easy with Mars and Gemini to overspeak, to say too much, to promise too much, to not fully vet out your ideas and, misspeak. So be mindful of the things and the words that you are saying over the course of this transit, because it's very easy for you to be misconstrued. It's also easy for someone to willfully misconstrue you. Something that I said for those of you who are practitioners, it is important that you protect yourself. If you're a person who works in businesses that have a lot of contracts to be signed, pay attention to that. Pay attention to the contracts with Mars and Gemini. Double talk can exist here. For those of you who have siblings, some of you might be dealing with some interesting themes surrounding your relationship with your siblings. Some of you might have some interesting themes that show up regarding your relationships with the people who live closest to you. A lot of fights, potentially. Celebrity and gossip. I think I already mentioned that, but Gemini, I mean, there's a lot of actors and actresses and just famous people have a lot of Gemini placements. There is that mirroring that we like in our celebrity, whether we recognize it or not. So it's easy for Gemini placements to slip in. There is going to be a lot of gossip, and how gossip affects you is different for everyone. For those of you who are practitioners and work in, spiritual businesses, I do foresee there being a lot more copycats. I just got my first freaking imposter on YouTube. There's nothing I can do about it, or on Instagram. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm trying to do something about it. It doesn't really help me when you guys tell me. I appreciate it. All you can do is just block and report. Hopefully Instagram will do something about it, but I do foresee these things getting worse. So just a reminder, no actual real spiritualist, astrologer, etc. is ever going to DM you and ask you for your information, tell you that there's a message for you. That's just not the way that ethical spiritual business practitioners behave. And when you get an information or an invite or a communication like that, you should block and report it because it's bullshit. But outside of that, just being mindful of gossip. Be careful who you're sharing what with. It's a trickster energy, guys. That's like, it's Gemini. You know, while there's going to be great, I can see great advancements, like I said, in tech, great advancements in animation and communication and writing and even music. I'm sure like great things are going to come. There's also going to be the downside of that. Now, I also want to talk about the fact that Mars separates. Once again, some of you will be separated from people who you thought you were really like twinning with. Some of you are going to lose some friends in Mars and Gemini. Gemini does, to me, as in a lesser way, kind of rule friendship in the same way that Aquarius does. Because, right, it's that sharing of information. I think there could be some online beefs that become kind of copious over the course of this Mars and Gemini transit. Overstimulation, misinformation, community. Yeah, so that's really what I wanted to say about this Mars and Gemini transit. Now, as far as the story goes, there's a story unfolding, and it's all, as far as the story goes, there's a story that's going to be unfolding, and it's going to begin really, it's going to start to be triggered between October 10th and October 14th of this year. If you have mutable planets between about 20 to 25 degrees in the sign of, Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, and Sagittarius especially, this is when your story kind of starts to shape up. It will again start to really, now if it doesn't show up then, or it's not clear, it'll become abundantly clear from November 18th through the 21st of this year. That is when Mars will go back over that same energy that it was in October, and that will tell another piece of the story. The final aspect of this story won't even come until March 13th through March 17th, 2023. So all of you guys should be watching, and October is a huge month for all of us. I mean, for the world, October is humongous because we've got our eclipse season starting back up, Saturn going direct. We've got Mars going retrograde. October is a really interesting month that a lot of astrologers have been kind of looking into and kind of foreseeing, much like this month. I'll tell you this, a lot of what you've been dealing with this month, especially if you're a fixed heavy person, that's Leo, Scorpio, Taurus, and Aquarian energy, you're likely going to be interfaced with again as we head into October and November of this year. So again, I just want to be clear, guys, the more you watch these cycles and these stories unfold, the more aware you get of when transits are showing up. We know that almost all the planets retrograde. They're going to come back around, whether it be this year or 2 years from now, right? You are going to see, some of those themes start to resurface. Other things to say about Mars and Gemini. So I talked about Mars and Gemini and Neptune and Pisces, which is information coming out that we were previously not privy to, probably purposefully left out of, the information, that now will come back around and it's like, here's the piece of the puzzle. Because you knew it didn't make sense when you got the puzzle. You knew there was pieces missing. Now we've got the pieces that have been back ordered and you're being urged to put them together. And frankly, I don't believe that any of us are going to like what we see. Because of white men, I mean, essentially. I really think that's all I have to say about Mars and Gemini, to be honest. It's just a transit where, like I said, I think it's going to be really fun and really lighthearted and hilarious. But I also think it is going to be chaotic, and it could even be just accident prone, because that's the nature of Gemini, is it's a little clumsy and it's a little all over the place. So looking at wherever that Gemini energy was sitting for you during these 2020-2022 eclipses, during that Venus 2020, Venus retrograde in Gemini, this is definitely a time for you to be thinking about what some of those themes were and how you're going to approach it. Because remember, you were supposed to be learning, right? Now that you've learned the lesson, or at least been made aware of what the lesson is, you should be able to move and make better decisions moving forward. Not to say that they won't be challenging, however. Are there any questions about Mars and Gemini transit before I let you guys go and carry this on for my patronies? Before, as you guys, if anyone has questions, I'll go ahead and just plug myself again. If you like what you hear while you're here, I recommend hopping on over to my Patreon. It's where all the fun stuff is. Yeah, that's really the only way to support me right now, as my books are closed for the foreseeable future. If you're interested in Cash Apping me, you may. That is always nice for these talks. My Cash App is Shantae Out Loud. That's just a way to show support and value. It doesn't look like I have any hands up or any requests. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for being in here. I hope that this Mars and Gemini transit was enlightening, or at least gave you an idea of what you can anticipate for this Mars and Gemini transit. And yeah, man, protect yourself. Like I said, I think I'm going to be making some threads here about ways to use Mars energy to find a better means of protection, similar to the one I did with Mars and Aries. So I'm going to try and get that done, but I hope that you guys like it, and I'll talk to you guys at a later date. Bye. Thank you.
Update. Please visit www.expressupdate.com to claim and update your business listing so the information about your business is accurately displayed.
All right. Thank you guys for waiting. Sorry, forgot. Okay. So now that we've already kind of went over Mars and Gemini, I now want to do horoscopes for the signs of what Mars and Gemini transit is going to be. So Gemini risings, this energy is going to primarily fall in your first house. So really triggering for you guys the lessons that you learned during during 2020 through 2022, when the North Node was within that sign. What were some themes that came up around you, your place in the world, your beliefs about yourself as an individual, your ideas about who you are supposed to be and how you're supposed to go up? are going, or how you're supposed to show up, are going to be copious. You can feel a lot of empowerment with this energy. And this can be really good. You know, again, learning all the lessons you learned with our eclipse cycle, it's about advocating for yourself. And this year, you're going to have to advocate with yourself about others, or, you know, the 7 months, you're going to have to advocate with yourself with family, certainly with your work life, and absolutely with, you know, any partnership that you have with another person. It's going to be really heavy for you guys, and it might even bring some themes that you thought were put to bed from a long time ago, or the last 2 years ago, might come back around for kind of that final piece of the puzzle to make sure you got the lesson. Sagittarius rising, you're very similar with that. You know, this energy is going to be sitting in your 7th house. It's so imperative as a Sag rising that you guys watch yourself over the course of this Mars transit. On one hand, you guys have a lot of potential for like new partnerships, really romantic, passionate partnerships, but there is also the potential for separations from partners, friends, relationship, business, etc. There is a need to draw lines and boundaries between you and other people, both at work, with family, and within yourself, you know, especially when it comes to the way that you show up and relate with people. Sag rising is going to need to be careful with signing contracts. You know, make sure you understand the little print, right? Because there could be, because Mars and Gemini can do the kind of double talk or double crossing, there could be some misunderstandings or miscommunications there. Cancer rising, you guys have this energy in your 12th house. Mars in the 12th house is a really hard transit. You are going to need to find a way to rest. When Mars is in the 12th, it can sometimes make us a little bit restless. So this is a really good time for focusing on your health, your day-to-day routines. Like, what are the ways that I can ensure that I'm getting all the things I need done in my day-to-day life, so I'm not overwhelmed by or overstimulated by things so much so that I'm not getting them done, or waiting until the last minute to get them done, or simply not doing them at all. I mean, that is kind of a theme. This is also likely to bring enemies from the past to the forefront. You might find that people who you haven't talked to in a long time are talking about you. This could also be a time to watch your work situation. If there is a person that you work with, a coworker or something, and they're a little weird towards you or energetically, you know, just know that you could be being watched with the purpose of sullying some plans, because somebody might be jealous of you or just might not want you to grow in some way. So just be mindful. It also is going to call to the carpet how you are an enemy to yourself. So be aware of that. Capricorns, you guys have this energy going through your 6th house. So this could be creating some aggravations for you at work as well, or in your day-to-day routine. Your health is really important. So making sure that you're not trying to do 800 things a day is going to be key. Do what you can. Try not to overexert, because if you do, you will run the risk of, number one, having accidents with your like physical body and in health, especially mentally. Like, write your to-do list. If you can only do a few things on that to-do list, make that enough every day. But trying to do, like, literally have all of your hands in, you know, all of your stokes in the fire is going to probably, you know, have a negative effect on you. It's important that you really focus on what you need to do every day in order to see a successful day through. The more you try and add more things in, or, oh, let it be a little bit more randomized, the harder your time you're going to have with Mars moving in Gemini. More accidents, miscommunications, things that don't have to happen will happen if you don't take care. Even especially with your health, but even with business and stuff. Leo risings. So you guys have this energy, of course, mostly going through your natal 11th house. So really about your friendships you know, really thinking about who you're connected to, who is a part of your network. It could be that a network you're a part of is no longer working for you, whether this be like a communal network based in job. It could even be like a dream or desire that you have previously been placing all of your energy in no longer really resonates with you. So you might see yourself taking a step back from goals, groups, communities that aren't really doing it for you in order to do it, you know, with or for someone else, and something that feels more authentic and naturally aligned to you. The key here is it is going to be what your vision of support is and who makes up that vision of support for you. So something to think about with that energy there. Moving on. Aquarius risings. So you guys have this Mars energy going through your 5th house. And this is going to make you feel really empowered for passion projects, for ideas. It might make you really empowered for like children. Like, I've got to have kids. I'm ready to have kids. What's it going to take for me to be a parent? You know, a lot of themes surrounding like fertility and really pleasure is here. So be mindful of like unplanned pregnancies for the next 7 months. Be mindful for planned pregnancies for the next 7 months. Some of you might want to be pregnant in the next 7 months, so that's your business. Some of you might notice that the thing that you thought you liked about a certain partner or about love or your idea about love has changed, and you're no longer seeking to go after love in this way or seeking to receive love from others in this way. It could be that you find a different or a new hobby to invest your time and energy into over the course of this. With you guys, however, you have to be really sure about what your bottom line is, because you can potentially waste time or be disillusioned by your own like desires, that you end up losing out on themes of money, worth, work can come up here. You could lose here because of Mars and Gemini. So maybe the person who you thought was going to be your only one and you're going to marry is maybe not that person once it all falls down because of this Mars retrograde. You know, even the one who like, oh, well, me and my partner, we're going to get married. It's like, that's not actually going to happen. Me and my partner, we're going to invest in this thing together. It might not come out that way. Do be aware that you could be receiving information about lovers that you previously didn't have. Also with this energy in the 5th house. So a lot of this is really best focused in on what you want and what you need, because I have a feeling that the people who are coming in could be creating some aggravations for you about getting it. When you're clear about what your bottom line is, it makes it easier for everyone else to either show up or fuck off, right? Virgo risings. So Virgo risings, this energy is mostly going to be falling in your 10th house. And this is tough. You know, this is about your career and your life and your goals moving forward. So Mars in the 10th house might have you feeling like, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing with myself? Where am I going? Do I need to work a job and learn a skill by night? Do I need to work 2 jobs? You know, do I need to get my side hustle going? It really is asking you, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing with your time? And so you're going to be really focused and called to consider how much of your time is maybe taken up by other people, especially with its square to Neptune, and the way it's going to be hitting that, you know, your angular areas of your chart. So really asking you, like, why are you doing what you're doing every day? Is what you're doing every day showing up as what your picture of your life wants to look like? This could be some changes in that picture of life. It's like, oh, wow, I was so sure that I wanted to be, you know, CEO by the time I was 34. And it's actually not going to work for me in the way that I've been doing it up to this point. I need to change direction. I need to change careers altogether with Mars and Gemini. And the great thing is, I mean, I will say, having Gemini in the 10th house, you can do both. You can do multiples, but you have to figure out what it is that you want to do multiples of so you can actually do it. It can't be continuing to sit around and ponder what you want to do or waiting for someone to be your golden meal ticket out of whatever it is that, you know, you want to be avoidant of. Like, you know, if you need to get a new job, get a new job. If you need to learn a new skill in order to be able to get the job that you need, stop, you know, dilly-dallying and take the certification, take the course, whatever. It's really about building up your own sense of autonomy, despite Mars being in Gemini, where it's like, we're twins, we're twins, we're twins. But Virgo energy is also like that boundary is needed. You know, your dream is not, cannot, it should not be attached to the dream of another. You should have your own things going on and ideas and thoughts that you want that are individualized, no matter if you lose every friend you have, you lose, you know, every support system you have. How do I do what I need to be doing for myself first? Yeah, I guess that puts us in Pisces. So Pisces rising, this energy is going through your 4th house. And there's a lot of focus here in your inner life. Some of you can be getting really heavy spiritual nods here, but it's going to be important that you separate, because with the 4th house and Mars there in Gemini, it could be creating mental health issues for some of you. You know, Gemini, you know, thoughts in 2 places in the 4th house where it's like our innermost life. There are 2 things kind of going on. It's like, what is, you know, based in like tangible reality, and what are the things that I understand and know that I can't necessarily see, and where do those 2 things come together? Mars in the 4th house also can create fighting in the home. You know, if you live with somebody and Pisces rising, you could start to feel a little like aggravated by them. It might feel like the house is too small. It might feel suddenly like the people who you are closest to are like getting on your nerves for some reason. It could be that you start to realize like the people who you consider to be a part of your family, or the people who you were considered as a part of like your inner life, whether it be like your inner spiritual life, or just somebody who's very close platonic friend or very close intimate partner. It's like something about them kind of seems like it's getting under your skin, or you're maybe being forced to reconcile with the mirror that they present to you in their behaviors or in themselves. And there could be some dissolution here. Now, you could also run the risk of being very, very busy at work. And that is a part of the reason that you're having this issue with that Mars and Gemini transit in the 4th. It's like, I have too much shit to do to come home and not have my food ready for me on the table. Or I've got too much shit to do to come home and see you still sitting on the couch because you haven't done anything today. Like, it's that kind of energy of, and it might be very much work related, but it's like, I'm busy and I need more space potentially, because I am operating of 2 minds. You know, I have my own business, or I work for this company, or my spiritual practice is requiring a lot out of me right now. So boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. I can't stress it again, mutables. I know I've been kind of hard on what is going on with you guys with this Mars and Gemini transit, but this Mars and Gemini transit is probably going to be hard on you. So be thoughtful about that with what, you know, as I'm presenting this information to you. Virgo, Pisces, Libra, and Aries. Okay. So Libra, this energy is going to be going through your 9th house. We have Mars in the 9th. I like it here. I feel like this is a better transit for you guys, because now you're thinking about what you want to experience. You're thinking about what you want to learn. You're thinking about where you want to go. Not only physically, but like, where will knowledge take me? For some of you, you might decide, I'm ready to go back to school. I'm ready to take some certifications. I'm ready to start getting myself in a space in my life where I feel empowered, and I feel like I'm getting my questions answered in a way that resonates. Positive stuff here overall. The key here is, however, to plan effectively, again, for yourself. Because this Mars energy is going to be interfacing with all the transitory areas of your chart, you're going to need to be more aware of, if you want to travel to this place, right? I want to go to Budapest in a year. So in order to go to Budapest in a year, I need to make a plan for how much money I need to save every month. I need to do my research, right? To see what it looks like, how much of my average day would be there, what it's gonna, like getting the pieces together. Now it might be like, don't be so quick to rush into it, because when Mars retrogrades, you might realize it's actually impractical for me to go to Budapest, or like in a year, it's impractical for me to go to Budapest. Maybe I can go in a year and a half. But you really will be ushered into realizing what you need, what it's going to take to get you where you're trying to go. Moving on past that. Aries rising, this energy is mostly falling in your third house. So Mars and Gemini really making you feel like you need to be pushed forward in the way that you communicate. Some of you are like, man, I'm ready to throw an event in my local area. I'm ready for people to hear me on podcasts, or on YouTube. It really is all about your communication and who you're talking to. Mars and Gemini will put a little bit more of a sharper tongue in your mouth. Be mindful of that when you're talking to people, because it can create some, upsets for a lot of people. It also is going to show you where you might actively work against yourself, where you're often in two minds of things, and how being in two minds of things overstimulates you and stops you from going from point A to point B. Sometimes it really is the journey only from point A to point B. There's not point A, point 5, point B, point 3. Like, you know what I'm saying? Get a list and a running order of what you're seeking to accomplish, so that way you don't feel like you get to the end of the day and you had said you were going to do this thing and then you didn't. Write it down. Mars is in Gemini, which is great for writing, right? It's in your third house. Write some things, put some things out there. I mean, it's likely that people want to have communication with you right now, and it's going to benefit you if you come forward with it. Scorpio. So Scorpios, you guys are having this energy. You guys are having this energy go through your sixth house. So Mars and Gemini in the sixth house. Is that right? Scorpio risings. Eighth house, I'm sorry. Scorpio risings, this energy is going in your eighth house. So this is a time for you guys to be thinking really closely about your future, about your mental health, about your family, and also about like research. Some of you have a lot of opportunity here to maybe link up with a person to create new means of abundance. Like this is a new business partnership some of you might be starting. Some of you might be maybe going back to school and it's requiring you to do a lot of research. Some of you are really looking to shift your financial future with Mars in the eighth house. And all of that is great, as long as you do your research and maybe even have a person who you can contact for further reference. It's okay if you want to look at alternative means of healing, but if you are going through something that maybe requires, a more westernized approach because of what you're going through at this time, you can take the westernized approach and research how to, the more Eastern or the more holistic approaches after the fact. This is a time where I will say, do be mindful about signing deals as well, kind of similar to Sagittarian energy. Things could seem like they're coming at you really quickly and then they get walked back. People could, because the eighth house is hidden, they might be showing you things that aren't real. Like it could be oh, I have this great idea. Here's all the things and all the steps. And then it's like, actually, that doesn't make any sense, or that wouldn't be the best idea for all of us, or that doesn't really work. So thinking about what you are seeking out of your shared resources is also important. You know, once again, back to the financial themes of your life. What am I getting out of what I have, and from whom? Taurus risings, finally. Taurus risings, you have this energy going through your second house. So Mars in Gemini is definitely going to enliven your finances. When Mars is in the second house, we feel empowered. We feel like go-getters. Some of you are going to want to start a new business. Some of you are going to want to get new jobs. Some of you are going to want to create another stream of income in a way. And all of this is good. The key to remember here, however, is when Mars is in the second house, it's not really about us being given money so much as us spending money or separating ourselves from money, i.e. losing it. So be mindful about what you are spending as this transit goes through. And this is like, yeah, for the next 7 months, like, is this going to be is this going to be an investment that I'm going to be upset about in 3 to 7 months? Literally, that's the key here. And that should lead your decisions. Am I going to, is the money that I'm spending, is the way that I'm investing in myself in this creative activity or in this new side hustle, whatever, is it actually going to net me what I assume it is? Is it going to bring me more money? Is it going to make things easier for me? And for some of you, you might notice that like this Mars transit shows you where you over invest yourself into projects that are wasteful. This is even going to show you where you might invest yourself into people who are useless. Second house Mars stuff does bring things to the forefront about what we value and cherish. And when Mars goes through there, it's removing ourselves. I thought I valued and cherished this thing, but I no longer do. So where it's impacting and shifting, you know, within the energy in your chart, really thinking about your relationship to things, the things that you like, to your relationship to your friends, your relationship to your future. They're all kind of locked in here. And all of that matters with what we do with our finances, right? We want the house, but we can't get the house with no savings. It's not generally likely. You have to put something down, right? So really thinking about what it is that you're willing to invest yourself in that is going to showcase for a long while. So that is what I have for you, my friends, with this Mars and Gemini transit. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. Please like, comment, subscribe on this video, tell your friends, and I'll be back later to talk about Mercury retrograde 2022 in Libra and Virgo. Bye now.